Now, this ain't gonna be very long. I just want to see if I can get y'all's interest peaked, you know. Let me see, I gotta open one more tab. I'm gonna hit the choo-choo train now. You know what there's building and blazing saddles? The choo-choo train. Let me go here. Let me go here. And I got the links on this, so we'll be able to look it up. You can go to the community tab where I posted these. And yeah, I did. Posted some stuff this morning about the trains. I jumped the gun, and I started looking at them later, so I edited some. But let's go see what it says about the trains. Let's go down here first. I was wondering, now, 'cause I was talking to somebody this morning. You know, history is now, I've been saying history is a lie. But my question was, how long did it take to build the railroads in America? 6 years. This is the Transcontinental. That was my mistake. I jumped the gun, thought that was talking about from one end to the other. But it makes it sound even worse, you know, at once you delve down into it. They had built in 6 years, almost entirely by hand. In 1869, there were no power equipment, no jackhammers that we, going by our history. Jackhammers, you know, we didn't have no power equipment. And to build a railroad, I know to build a house, I'm going to get out of here for a second. To build a house, I framed houses for 13 years. You have to make sure you got solid ground under you. Then you got to dig out that solid ground for the footings. So you can't just go laying gravel over top of topsoil, throw the railroad ties on there and drop the rails on there. You got to dig down to solid ground to get a good bed, solid bed, because, you know, trains weigh a pound or two. And you got to have something solid. You got to have some solid bedding under the railways. So to build almost 2,000 miles of railway, you're going to have to dig down to solid ground and then bed it up with gravel, then put the railroad ties down. You don't just lay it on the top of the ground and go with it. You just don't. The train is going to fall over, or it ain't going to work. The rails are going to collapse, you know, sink up. But come on, man, 6 years to put almost 2,000 miles of rail in by hand, horse and buggy. They might have had an engine going to bring materials once they got the track out of ways. But they was using horse and buggy, folks. Somebody tell me, the first car wasn't, that they wasn't driving Freightliners, Peterbilts, and Kenworths in 1869, folks. Nope. Let's go back to the train thing. All right. And here's the link. You can go look. Okay, the Transcontinental Railroad was built in 6 years, almost entirely by hand. Workers drove spikes in mountains, filled holes with black powder, and blasted through rock inch by inch. That's not counting having to build bridges over the rivers that was in the way. All right. Next, to ask a question: how long to build I-40? You know, I was going to go from Barstow, California, to Wilmington, North Carolina, but I was like, hey, let's just work in North Carolina. All right. Okay. 5 years later, I-40 was complete from Old Fort east to Hildebrand, west of Hickory, to Conover, to Statesville, to Farmington. They got a drag strip out in Farmington I need to get to. But anyway, to the routes terminus in Greensboro. Greensboro roughly starts at exit 208. That's where I used to stop and get fuel at a Wilco. Going east, I'd get off, make a left, there's the Wilco. Another truck stopped to the right, I got fuel that forward. But that, I can't remember the name of that town. Not right offhand. But roughly, Greensboro starts, okay, after 208. So roughly, I know Hickory, when I was running up to Hickory, I'd get off at exit 123. That's Highway 321. We thought it was funny, you know, just backwards, highway number backwards. But to get off in Hickory, to go up to that, where was I, what was I delivering? I can't remember what, I think it was Carolina Container, cardboard mess. Exit 123, 123 miles roughly from Tennessee. Because the mile markers jump from zero, they start in the west, 0, and as you go east, they climb on the interstates. South, they start 0 and climb as you go north on the interstates. All right. Exit 123 is Hickory. You see west of Hickory. Now, Old Fort is out there around Asheville. I got that on up here in a second. All right. In 5 years, they put in, well, it's on up. They finished I-40 in 5 years from Asheville, roughly, to Greensboro. 5 years. All right. The railroad took only 6. Here's why I had to edit it. The railroad took only 6 years. Built by hand. First Transcontinental Railroad, known originally as the Pacific Railroad, later as the Overland Route, was a 1,912-mile continuous railroad. I need to change that. Continuous railroad, built mainly by hands in only 6 years. I-40 from Old Fort, North Carolina to Greensboro, North Carolina. Just say 150 miles, built by machines in 5 years. So these dudes laid the smack down on machines. And they had to drive, make holes in a mountain, stick gun and blow holes through a mountain. They had to probably cross rivers. I didn't look up the route, but I'm pretty sure there's a river or two they had to cross, at least a creek. In 6 years, they built almost 2,000. Once you get up that far, 80-some miles, 78 miles ain't nothing. Just shy of 2,000 miles of hand-built railway, driving in the spikes to hold the ties down, the rail down, by hand with sledgehammer in 6 years. In 6 years. All right. 149 and 150 miles of I-40 from Old Fort, North Carolina to Greensboro, North Carolina, built by machines in 5 years. So just say, you know, come on. Just say if they was keeping up with, let's say if they was keeping up with them. If they was matching them, building the railways by hand and building the highway with machines. Just say if they was keeping up with them. It took them 5 years to go 150 miles. So in 10 years, they would have gone less than 300 miles running train rail by hand. There you go. 1,912 miles of mostly hand-built railway went in almost as fast as 149.5 miles of machine-built I-40. Now, once you come down Black Mountain, it's just about flat from there. Shoot to the coast. There's some hills, but no mountains. Once they started in, where is this? Old Fort. Yeah, that's up Nashville. You coming from Asheville towards Greensboro, you got to come down Black Mountain. It's a pretty steep mountain. Now, they had to blast holes through that mountain because I used to live in a cabin 7 minutes from here. Flat ground, ice on the track. A train got stuck on flat ground because ice was on the track. Now, trains, you showed me a train that can climb Black Mountain without losing traction. I'll show you a train with rubber tires and grip on the rails. Why don't you go look at a set of wheels on a train? Make sure a train ain't coming. I better say this. Make sure the train ain't moving when you go look at the wheels. Make darn sure a train ain't coming when you go look at the track. You show me any kind of traction they have. They don't go up and down mountains. They never get no traction. It's got to be on flat ground. Huh, imagine that. Another video. But the train got stuck in the Vacaville on flat ground because ice was on the rails. You could hear him spinning. I don't know how long it took. He was just running, getting the rails hot and trying to melt the ice off the flat rails on the flat ground. But supposedly 1,912 miles of track was built mostly by hand using horse and buggy. They was working towards each other. I don't care. I don't care. They're up against machines running I-40, 150 miles. And they finished 1,912 miles of track, 1 year longer of track built by hand, blowing holes in mountains, crossing rivers, had to build a bridge. I mean, they didn't Duke Boy across a river. They can't set a darn ramp up and jump that freaking locomotive across a river, can they? Last I checked. So driving railroad spikes in by hand with sledgehammers. Horse and buggy to haul your stuff out there. They finished 1,912 miles of track 1 year after machines run 150 miles of Interstate 40. Really? Really? You might want to rethink what we've been taught. Because history as we know it is a lie.
And here a look at the unearthing of the pre-existing railway. It doesn't matter where this picture is, this is the case in all parts of our realm. The story of the inherited railways make absolutely no sense until we look at a picture like this. And now we can conceive of building railways in the early 1800s.
Alright, this is my GPS. Yeah, it's a little out of date, but the miles ain't changed. This is how the easiest way to get around without trusting the computer. Let's jump to the back. Let's look up. Darn letters are small. Winston-Salem, while we got up here. Let's go up here to California. Let's go to Los Angeles. Hijkl. Los Angeles, California. It's the last one in this one. Oh, Los Angeles, California. Come all the way down here. Winston-Salem. Last one where my finger's at. Winston-Salem was the second one. I got my cord in. I'm going to have to unplug my phone in a second. I'm going to cover you up. Winston-Salem. Where's Los Angeles? Focus. Right there. Winston-Salem, that's the closest big town. Last one. 2430, 2455. 2455. Alright. Let's go back to let's go back to the front. A country picture. Dog Nabbit has a pretty truck, ain't it? I always wanted one of them as a Kenworth of the lift. Well, had to have some hazmat on some of mine. Haul. Contract has a logbook. You learn how to operate them. That's the main thing you'll need to learn how to operate. You did now. I think they go on electronic logs, crap on that. Where's that picture of the country? Weight limits and all. Size and weight limits. Weight and size limits. Every state. Radioactive. Arkansas tells you where the low bridges are, way stations. California, Arkansas, Alaska, Arizona. Dog Nabbit. New York. Oh goodness, New York. I don't even want to talk about New York. Canada. Got some. Here we go. There's Winston-Salem. Should check somewhere down here in South Kakalaki, somewhere in this area. I delivered to Oklahoma City. It was 1,100 and some odd miles, how the crow flies. Straight out to here, you know, run 40. You see, where was I? I went Salem. I might have run up 81, run down. And where is it? Doggone, it's hard to look through the camera. Might have run up 77, but I think I came on out, it was 40. Came all the way across here, through Arkansas, through Texas. Nope, Oklahoma City, then Texas. Got out here. That's 1,100 some odd miles. So apparently, 11, there's 3, 12, 13, 14, 15. Just say roughly to here. Winston-Salem. All the way across to maybe Amarillo, maybe going into New Mexico. 1,100 miles, 1,900 miles, 1,900 miles, 700 miles more. So that's 3. And that's almost roughly over here because there's 370 some in there, I think. 370 some in there. So that'd be more than 7, you know. I don't know how far it is across. How does it say? 49 miles, I think that's what that's in 96. I can't, 96 miles across, something like that. So, out here to New Mexico, they run train tracks from Winston-Salem all the way across to New Mexico in 7 years. But if you look, let me see if I can find it over here. There's 40, there's an attention. Asheville's about here at my finger somewhere. They put this much train track in over to here, 150 miles in 5 years using machines. But they put this much track in 7 years by hand. Come on, people. That's all a bunch of crap. It's all a bunch of crap. Think about it. They went almost to California. They got into New Mexico easy. So if that's 1,100, let's say another 100 miles, 1,200, then you got 700 more miles. I mean, I know this is 700 across these two states. So just take Texas out of these two states. So you made it to Flagstaff, Arizona. Just about. Let's see if we can find Winston-Salem to Flagstaff. Let's do that. Let's go to the back. Where's the F's? Okay, Fort Flagstaff, Arizona. It's the second one right there in this second box. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Second one, 1,983 miles. From Flagstaff, Arizona to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I was 70 miles off. That's pretty doggone good guessing. All right. From Winston-Salem to Flagstaff, Arizona. That's 1,900 miles. Winston-Salem. I always go up 77, hit 81, run it down into Bristol, Tennessee, and hit 40. Go to West Memphis, Arkansas. There's a couple pilots there. There's a couple TAs and Petro out through here. A couple pilots up in here. But I get to West Memphis. Get on past Little Rock. Come up this way. Go up this way. Go holler at Bud. Is that toward, yeah, up 540 up near Springdale. He says around that area. So I'd have to go up there and holler at Bud. Then have to enter Oklahoma. Go through Oklahoma City. Go through Armadillo, Texas. There's a TA out there with a 72-ounce steak you get for free if you can eat it in an hour. I bet I could do it. Fat and all. So you go through Albuquerque. You don't make a right turn in Albuquerque. You wind up in Colorado. But Flagstaff, Arizona. I think that's Flagstaff. Yeah, right there at my finger. Where's Winslow? I stood on the corner of Winslow, Arizona. I did. I'm an idiot. I went out there and I had that song in my head. But right there, Flagstaff, Arizona. 1,900. It's 1,985 miles. They laid 1,912 miles of track in 7 years. By hand. And right here is Greensboro at that dot. To Asheville, roughly about out here. 20, what is that? 26. Oh, it's 77. Okay, 26, 20, right here. Yep, here it is, Asheville. From here, at that dot, to Greensboro is roughly 150 miles. They got that done with machines in 5 years. So don't tell me they laid this much railroad track by hand in 7 years by hand when it took them 5 years to run that. Think about it.